All right. We are live. Welcome to the You Heard Me podcast episode
9?
9. There you
Okay.
go. We're losing count already. and
Sorry,
only
we're
9.
late. I had to make my tea because it's freezing
Alyssa
in
had
here.
to- Alyssa
and
had
look
to
at
make
my
her tea.
cute little mug.
She had to make her tea. She's got a
In
cute
my
little
cute
mug.
little doggy mug.
She's got a cute little mug now.
It has all different doggies on it.
All different doggies. It's very nice. All different dogs. All right. So we're good. Yeah. We figured out how to direct link in our Instagram to right to the video. So what we're going to do in future weeks for the podcast is we're actually going to post the live stream link earlier. It's just going to say waiting, or, it'll say the time that we're going to go live. And you can actually, if you're logged into YouTube, you can hit notify and it will notify you when we're live. So we figured out a little bit of a better way to drive everybody from Instagram to YouTube. It's the first time doing this, so hopefully it goes off without a hitch. And yeah, it looks like we're doing good. So we can dive right into it. We have a whole list of questions from this week that we're going to go through. And also, I just want to do one extra check before we dive into questions. I just want to make sure that everything is connected to YouTube. So we're going to pull up our YouTube and just make sure that everything's running without a problem. Yeah, it is. Okay, great. Awesome. So, all right, everything's good there. So we're good on YouTube. We're live. Thank you for everybody who has joined in. We're going to get into our lead-in topic. So You Heard Me podcast episode 9. We're coming to you every Thursday at 8 p.m. We're super excited to be here. We're super excited to be helping all of you. All right, so our lead-in topic. I always like to remind everybody to vote for the topic leading up to the podcast, and you can also submit your questions via our Instagram stories, questions to which we're going to be answering tonight. The lead-in topic that we're going to be covering today is rushing the door. So dogs that rush the door. And we talk about this quite a bit. And it's not an uncommon behavior. So rushing the front door essentially is just it's what dogs technically do. I just lost our chat, but I'll find it. So what dogs will do is when they get triggered, when it comes to the front door, what will happen is they'll hear the door knock or the doorbell, and that will trigger them. We talked about triggers on a previous podcast episode. And what will happen is they'll just go not chasing, but they'll go rushing the front door to see who it might be. And your dog doesn't know who it is. It could be somebody familiar. It could be somebody not familiar. And that unknown, that uncertain factor is what drives dogs to be like, well, what if it isn't somebody I know? And that's where you're going to get the barking. You're going to get all of that type of behavior out of your dog because they don't know what's beyond the door. Now, when the door opens and they see the person, that's usually that's the determining factor of where your dog is going to turn. If it's somebody they know, they might go into an excitement pattern where they're jumping all over the person, which we don't like a lot of that because especially for elder people or elderly people, that's not a good behavior and that needs to be corrected. But also the more scary of the one is if the dog doesn't know the person. We've actually dealt a lot with dogs that have gotten sent to us for dogs that have bitten people coming through the front door. And so we talk a lot about this. So that is commonly what happens. And some owners will resort to putting their dogs in a crate when they know that there's going to be visitors because they don't want to deal with that rushing.
Avoiding the situation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't blame them for doing it. It's just a means to an end. And so our job is to provide solutions for those things. Mm-hmm. So, essentially what you want to do, pretty much all dogs, most dogs, I'm not going to say all, but about 90% of dogs are doing this behavior. What you want to do is two things. It's a two-prong approach. You want to stop the rushing of the door. You want to stop that reactivity pattern because that's the first thing that happens is your dog will explode and bark and rush the door and all sorts of things, scratch the door, the whole 9 yards. You have to stop that, all right? So it's a two-prong approach. You essentially, if the dog is going bananas, okay, you condition an e-collar, okay? You stop and interrupt that. Now, with that said, if you want your dog to bark to some degree, then you don't correct that. It's very simple. If you want your dog to be a dog, which I think is completely fair, to alert you when somebody's there, we're not saying remove the entire alertness or them alerting you. We're not saying that. We're saying when you want it to stop, it should stop. That's what we're saying. So we're not saying,
Stop on command.
you're not going to remove the bark out of the dog. That's how dogs communicate. So we're not removing how the dog communicates. That's nearly impossible, even if you wanted to try. You're not going to be successful. What you are going to be successful at is teaching your dog that you don't want them to go past a certain level. Okay. So if you want them to bark a few times to let you know somebody's there, okay, great. But that over arousal, which usually turns into that scary reactivity pattern where a lot of people are afraid to even have people come through the door, that's what you have to stop. How do you stop it? You condition an e-collar. You tell your dog, I don't like that behavior. I want you to stop. An e-collar is really good for interrupting behavior. It doesn't end there, though. And so what you want to do is after you interrupt the behavior, you correct your dog. No, I don't like you going to a certain level, which they will understand if your correction is properly timed. If you properly time the correction and you use a level that your dog cares about, I don't like that. I don't want your paws on the door. I don't want you knocking people over when they come in. Stop all the bad stuff. And this is where the misconceptions start floating around. Not the misconceptions, but the myths and things that people will say. You can't add, all right. When you have a bad behavior like that, when you have a behavior that, I'm not going to say, let's not even say excitement. Let's say the true like dogs that are a bite risk when people come to the door. Let's talk about those for a second, because that's really where we have to be most worried. So for dogs like that, your treats are going to fail you in those moments. Your dog is already too overly aroused in that moment. Just throwing treats in front of their face is not going to stop the reactivity pattern. This is where you're going to get all sorts of conflicting information. You have to stop the bad stuff so that you can replace it with good stuff. This is not uncommon information. There are thousands of trainers that are doing this. This is not something that we made up. If you want to stop an unwanted behavior, it's very easy. You properly time a correction. Typically, an e-collar is the best way to correct a dog. No, I don't like you getting to that level. Your dog is going to be less likely to do it over time. Okay, so you're decreasing the likelihood of your dog losing their mind using a punishment or a punisher. And again, that punisher is an e-collar correction. All right, and punishment is not a dirty term, and it's also nothing earth-shattering. It's just you don't want your dog to get to that level, and you're correcting them for doing that, and that's an acceptable correction because that is a dangerous behavior. How many dogs have to bite people coming through the door before we start talking about the reality of these situations? I mean, seriously. And even if your dog isn't a bite risk, okay, well, it's still not good behavior. And it's behavior that your dog needs to understand is not okay. All right. So there's a lot of, again, you're going to get a lot of conflicting information on this. Oh, teach your dog a sit or, X, Y, Z. Just stop it. All right. There are people struggling for years with this when you can stop this type of behavior like literally in its tracks. And you're not being unfair to your dog. You're saying to your dog, this is something I don't like. And the best way to communicate to that is to provide a correction. Okay. Now, you're going to stop it, but it doesn't end there. You have to give your dog a job. Okay. So typically when you interrupt or correct an unwanted behavior, you want to give your dog an alternative. Okay. This is why it's not unfair to be correcting your dog for unwanted behavior. The alternative is please go to your place or go into a down or whatever the alternate behavior you want. And over time, you're creating a new pattern because the current pattern is not healthy. So what you're in the reversal. Okay, so you're reversing an unhealthy pattern by stopping and interrupting it and correcting it with an e-collar. Okay, we do this all the time. And then you also see in a lot of our videos on Instagram where essentially we teach an alternate pattern, which is to go to your place. And it works very well. I mean, I don't know how many videos we have to show of creating a new pattern to which your dog doesn't lose their mind anymore. But you have to stop the bad stuff. If you want to replace it with healthier patterns, you can't put healthier patterns on top of bad patterns and hope that the healthier patterns are just going to magically replace the bad patterns. It's not. That's the reality. Maybe not trainers are not being truthful. Okay, I'm truthful, and I don't mind telling the truth, and that's the whole reason for this podcast. So this might make people feel a certain way, and I don't really care because that's the truth, and that's what people need to hear. And I'm tired of owners getting lied to, because then the owners come to us, and then they say, well, why isn't this stuff working? Well, it's because you're not being told the truth. That's just the reality. That's why they call this the You Heard Me podcast, because people need to hear this stuff. People need to understand that we are not the only ones doing this. And it's not that it's nothing bad. And if you properly time a correction, your dog is going to understand, oh, maybe that's not something I should be doing. And also, you're also giving them an alternative. You're going to teach that alternative, not in the moment where your dog is losing their mind, because that's not going to work. You're going to spend all sorts of time teaching a place command. And you're going to do that when your dog isn't aroused. And you're going to take the time to teach them. And you're going to teach them without distractions. And you're going to reward them. And you're going to build their confidence. And you're going to do all that. You're going to make sure, and I want to make sure this is also clear, to teach your dog what you want, okay? Yes, you can correct jumping, counter surfing, rushing the door, barking intensely. You can correct your dog reacting in the middle of a reaction. If your dog's barking in the car out a window, that's something you can correct. You don't necessarily need to teach it down. You can correct all that stuff. It's always better, however, when you can show your dog the alternative and you can work on that separately so that the two pieces come together. No, don't do that. Here's a healthier pattern. And I'm going to spend all this time teaching you what that healthier pattern is. And I'm going to go at your pace so that you understand how to go to your place in those moments. You're not going to try to teach that on day one. Don't correct your dog with an e-collar and expect your dog to know how to go to place. That's not how that works. There's a lot of work involved. Yes, correcting and interrupting and stopping a behavior is a 2-second protocol. Teaching the alternative could take you a month or more. So you still have to do the work. Even if you stop the bad stuff, there is work that needs to be done. There is teaching that needs to be done. There is confidence building that needs to be done. There is rewarding that needs to be done. So it's not just correct it and then be done, although you could certainly do that. What we do is the reason why we have dogs for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
For exactly that
is
reason.
Because that's what we're doing. We are teaching them a healthier pattern. We're not just doing this on e-collars, okay? Typically, typically the first week to 2 weeks of our board and train, we're not even putting them in those situations because, in fact, we're going to teach them the healthier pattern first, okay? We're going to teach them the healthier pattern first. But just knowing the healthier pattern is not going to stop the bad pattern. So at some point during the program, we do have to stop the bad pattern, right? But we usually start with the teaching of the new pattern and dogs will know. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's cool. I can go to my place, but wait until they're triggered. That's when we have to come in and stop the bad pattern. But a lot of times, the first week to 2 weeks, we're not even stopping anything really because we're not triggering the dog. We're teaching the dog a foundation. And that's the proper way to do it. But to be realistic though, there are owners that, that could also just stop things in 2 seconds if they really wanted to. They don't have to go through teaching a place and a down, although it's preferable. And that's the benefit of our board and train because we can take that lift off our client's shoulders. And I'd much rather do that. So you'll never find me just going into a home and throwing an e-collar on, just, stopping things. I don't think I've ever done that, right? So I am a big advocate of teaching and making sure the dog can learn before we do correct them. I know we're going to have to correct them no matter what we teach them. We could spend 3 months teaching something. I know even after those 3 months, the likelihood of having to correct them is going to be high. But I always like to do it after the fact, okay? But again, for things like jumping, okay, technically you could leash pop that and be done with it in 2 seconds. So, but you have to balance it. And I hate using that word, but it has to be a give and take. I posted something yesterday on our Instagram, and it's like, if all you're doing is correcting your dog, then you're going to build a negative association with you. But the reason why that never happens is because most people also play with their dog, feed their dog, walk their dog, spend time with their dog, cuddle with their dog. So that correction is not going to hurt your relationship because there's all these other moments during the day where you're not correcting your dog. And so you're not going to have a negative relationship because that's a very small part of your dog's entire day. So they're not going to hold it against you. So all these people out there that's telling you like, oh no, don't correct your dog and this and that and everything else.
It cause a negative relationship?
Your relationship's going to ruin. No. It's all to fear you out of stopping stuff. And that's the most ridiculous thing. So that's just the take on whether it's rushing the door, jumping. Okay, just you can stop it. Stop it for sure. Especially if it's a bite risk situation, stop it. Be done with it. Tell your dog you don't like it. Spend the time teaching them though. Spend the time teaching what you want. Spend the time teaching a place. Spend the time teaching a foundation. All right. Do all the e-collar conditioning. All right. Which is good for obedience. Do all of that. Okay. Do the work. Right. I'm advocating for still doing the work. There are things though that you can stop without having to go through a year or 2 or 3 year protocol. And that's sort of what I'm trying to get to with that. So that's just my take on that. I've found my second wind. I did drink a cappuccino about about an hour ago. So
was it caffeinated?
It was caffeinated, which is it's usually I don't drink caffeinated, but we'll see what time I actually am able to go to bed tonight, which will be good. I'm trying to find the chat box that I lost because I'm trying a new thing here, and I lost our chat box. I don't know where it went. I'm gonna have to find it. It's somewhere. But all right. Well, if you're trying to ask a question, what if we go into studio mode? Nope, that doesn't do it. Settings. Where did our chat box go? Can we find it? I don't know. Sorry, guys. I don't know where our chat box went. So we're just going to have to... Yeah, it could be. Let's see. Let's see if we can get back to our chat box here. All right. Well, I don't know. I can't find it. We lost it. Chat box went into thin air. So we'll find it. We'll find it, and if we don't, then we'll answer those questions next week. But we have tons of questions we're going to answer as part of the episode here. So,
hey, ready?
All right, so let's jump in it. Let's jump into what do you got? First question. Oh, first of all, let's have a little check-in. How was your day today?
It was slow today.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I got home at 6:30. That's an hour earlier than I usually do.
Yeah. You did get home a little earlier.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you.
It was slow.
Okay.
Oh, it was bring your children to work day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my coworker brought her 2 girls in.
Oh, very nice.
And they put the color cards in order.
What's the color cards? What is that? Color cards.
The color palette.
All right. Alyssa's helping me with our own color palette for our own graphics on our Instagram. So, Alyssa, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do?
I work in merchandising for Tommy Hilfiger. So I choose the styles that get sold in the store and how much we buy of them. So everything you see in the store or online, product you see online or in the store is what I chose. And then if you like it and it sells out, I should have bought more of it.
How long have you been doing that? You've been doing that for a while, right?
10. How old am I?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
10, 12, 10 or 10. I don't know. When did we start? When did we graduate? 12 years, I guess.
12 years.
How old am I? Or it's going to be 12 years next year, I guess.
12 years.
Yes.
Where were you before that?
The children's place, doing children's clothing.
All right. Well, I'm trying to find the chat box, so I'm trying to have Alyssa just give her a little
randomly
background.
Talk about.
Well, no,
things.
I think it's important for people to understand, your background, and I think it's also worth reiterating that Alyssa and I went through a very, very tough reactive journey with Layla, who is our Australian Shepherd, and Alyssa is the best person to be on this podcast because that's a big reason of why Hope Gables Canine exists. Was that experience, and we actually posted an Instagram yesterday going through the years of all the things that we had to do to build the company. But Alyssa also she's been working in merchandising for over a decade. And so she helps us a lot with graphics and design and all of that. What's your favorite part of doing that while I try to find our chat box again? I can't get off of this.
Well, if you're someone who likes fashion and like styling, that's basically what I do. So
okay.
It's fun.
All right.
Like looking at the color palette.
Yeah. Okay.
I decide all of the polo colors. Polos are our number one.
I found it.
Oh, you did?
I got it.
Anyway, I'm still talking.
Guys, I got it.
I'm still talking.
All right, fine.
Okay.
Keep going.
So polos are our number one category, not only in, I do men's, not only in men's, but for the entire company.
You do
That's
what?
me. Polos.
What do you do? I hope you don't do men's.
I do men's.
Okay. That joke went right over her. This is a PG-13.
I work
/
in
rated
the
R
men's
podcast.
division.
Okay, that was better. I like
And
how you phrased that.
polos are one of my category, and they're the number one category in the company. So
number one
I'm
category.
uber important.
You're uber important. Okay. All right.
Yes. And polos was up 12% for the first quarter.
The first quarter. Okay.
Well, technically, we have one more week of the quarter, but so far we're up 12%.
Hey, we have a question because I have my chat box back. So
What's
we
the
actually
question?
got a question. So thank you, Alyssa, for telling everybody about your background. I think
Are
that
we
was,
skipping that now?
I think, well, yeah, we're going to get back into it. So basically, Alyssa's been working in merchandising for over a decade. She helps me with our graphics. She's my lovely wife, and I would not be sitting here without her support. So I think it's important that, people understand, your background and how you help as well. What are you pointing at?
Is that what it's
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So technology though,
Not
Alyssa has
not
really good
my,
an eye for design.
but I'm like very old when it comes to technology.
Well, that's okay.
I don't know how to do anything.
We don't hold that against you. We don't hold that against you.
Even when we go to meetings and we have to plug into the big screen,
Plug into the big
I always
screen.
ask like the 24-year-olds to do that because I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Can you believe I used to take apart computers and put them back I used to take apart computers and put them back together again when I was younger. I could not
For fun?
For fun. I could not do that today.
Mm.
I could not do that today. So anyway, just a little bit about Alyssa, a little bit about me. If you asked me to take apart a computer right now, I wouldn't even know where to start. But when I was younger, I would literally just tinker with stuff. I mean, I would open up my Xbox. I'd look at all the chips and stuff. I was such a nerd. But nerd is not a dirty term because I'm okay with that. I think nerd. I mean,
What did you say is a dirty term? What did you say?
Well, a dirty term. Nerd. Remember when we were in like high school? It was like, oh, you're just, you had these labels for people. I think it's such a silly thing. High school in general, with
Not
all,
really.
I think it's silly. I don't think.
No, I mean, I'm saying not really. We didn't really.
You didn't have that.
Not really.
Really? Okay, we're getting off track. We need to get into questions, and we have some questions coming in the chat. We're going to start losing viewers. Okay, let's get in. Let's answer.
Why don't you answer that?
Yeah,
one
let's
first?
answer. So from Powderfinger, okay, username Powderfinger. How do you feel about bar collars for door reactivity? Well, all right, look, bar collars, we used to use them more. We don't use them as much anymore, mainly because if you are tactful on your e-collar, you really don't need a bar collar. And even on top of that, if you teach calming commands, like a place command, a down command, if you proactively enforce calmness inside, you're going to start getting calmness more. So we've actually moved away from using bar collars. I know in previous episodes I've mentioned bar collars because, yeah, I mean, they have a use case, but, I mean, you theoretically, yes, you could use a bar collar, but you have to condition it just like any other tool, just like an e-collar. You have to condition. So for a bar collar, you want to start on the lowest level. You want to make sure your dog is connecting the feeling to the barking. Even if the lowest level isn't enough to stop the barking, you want your dog to understand, I bark, I feel this. I bark, I feel this. So even if number 1 out of whatever 5 or 6 is underwhelming, make sure you do that for a couple days. Even if the barking doesn't go away, that's how you properly condition. You don't want to put a bar collar on and jack it up to level 5 without your dog ever learning that tool. So that's important. That's important for everybody to understand, which is no matter the tool, bar collar, e-collar, prong collar, anything, slip lead, it's any training tool, clicker, you have to condition it. Any training tool you use has to be conditioned. So clickers have to be conditioned, right? E-collars have to be conditioned. Prong collars have to be conditioned. So I think the biggest mistake that people make is they throw tools on before conditioning them to their dog. And that's why a lot of these tools get a bad rep. I want to make sure that that's clear. But yeah, theoretically, you can use a bar collar. But if you want your dog to understand that they can bark, but not to a certain level, then the e-collar is the better of the two tools. And hopefully that was helpful.
I have a question though.
Oh boy.
Like maybe this person is asking about the bar collar because it could catch the timing better. Like you don't say,
yeah,
you
of
don't
course.
say, I'm not done yet.
All right, sorry. Didn't mean to.
say You have someone coming to the door like FedEx or whatever. You're not expecting them, right?
Sure.
It's different if you have people coming over and you're expecting them at a certain time and
Sure.
you're like have the e-collar and you're ready to go. But if just someone randomly comes, how are you really able to get that timing right if you don't know when that person's coming? Like maybe they think or people think that using a bark collar would catch the timing better.
Yeah, I mean, look, it definitely timing is everything in dog training. So yes, bark collars, when you're not good on your timing, help you with timing. But I would try to push yourself to try to be good on your timing on an e-collar, because I honestly think an e-collar is more effective, especially when you start teaching alternative behaviors. I know there's a follow-up question. Dog hears the door, barks on the sound. Well, okay, so we haven't talked about counter conditioning either. I think counter conditioning is a factor here. So counter conditioning is something you can counter condition sounds. All right, so you can, right? So if it's a sound thing that you can reproduce, there is value in counter conditioning a sound. So what you want to do is you want to reproduce that sound. You can even record it on your phone, play it on a Bluetooth speaker. Click, reward, or mark it, reward, provided your dog doesn't bark. But the dogs that are knee-jerk reactive, and you don't have that opportunity to counter condition, that's especially if they're very intense, I wouldn't really get into counter conditioning. It all depends on the intensity, it depends on the risk of a bite, all that stuff. But I wanted to mention counter conditioning because that is a factor in this as well, which you can work on. You can get your dog used to hearing the sounds and then rewarding them, and then you're changing the way they think about it. That is part of it. I've also worked with dogs that are super intense that you just needed. It was dangerous behavior that you needed to stop, and then we would use an e-collar, and then we would start introducing a healthier pattern, like I was mentioning earlier. But look, yes, you can use a bark collar. I'm not saying you can't, especially for unannounced things, but also especially for things that you can't predict happening. Mm-hmm. So if you live in an apartment building and there's sounds going all over the place, a bark collar would be helpful for that as well, because you're not going to be able to reproduce every single sound. You're not going to be able to reproduce your neighbor upstairs dropping pots and pans on the floor, or their kid banging their feet on the top of the, whatever it is. So a bark collar can help you with that. But just as equally, I mean, we're actually responding to the chat in real time. But so Powderfinger said that it sounds like I need an e-collar. You're very welcome. That's why we do this. So I would get a mini educator e-collar, or mini educator or micro if your dog is under 20 pounds. So go to ecollartechnologies.com. I do not make money on saying any of this, but we use those e-collars, and I would definitely start teaching your dog certain things, like definitely a place command, which Tyler Muto, and I know I said this on previous podcasts, Tyler Muto has an amazing mastering e-collar course on considerthedog.com. I also don't get paid for this either. I should be getting paid for some of this stuff. But regardless, I'm happy to give out free information and happy to give credit where credit is due. Tyler Muto has one of the most phenomenal e-collar conditioning courses you can seek out. So go to considerthedog.com. And he has an amazing course. So definitely get an e-collar, but definitely do the work of conditioning it, because there is a lot of technique and not a lot of nuance. I wouldn't necessarily, unless it's a super dangerous behavior or there's a lot of risk, I wouldn't necessarily jump right into just like corrections. I would at least try to do some research and on some conditioning stuff, do some conditioning with your dog. That's what we do here. We don't like take dogs in on day one and just start correcting behaviors. We do a lot of
bring your dog to us.
Yeah, but you can do this. You can also do a lot of this at home too. You don't necessarily need to. But yes,
don't discredit your work.
I'm not. But not people. Sometimes we don't know where everybody's located. So that's the whole idea of the podcast.
Yes,
I appreciate
but still come to us.
Okay. Sure. Yes, Alyssa is my favorite hype woman. Sorry, rather, hype woman. Anyway, so yeah. All right, what's the next one?
All right. Based on your knowledge and experience, what would you say are the 5 golden rules in dog training?
Jeez. 5 golden rules. What is this?
That's funny.
Oh. Powderfinger, I don't know your real name, so I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic that your dog is coming to us, but I don't think when you signed the contract, you signed it Powderfinger, but that's okay. We'll solve all that. We'll solve all that down the line. We'll figure all that out. But I'm super excited. That's actually so funny. So all right, well, cool. Well, that's great. So then you don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. So
It'll be done for you.
We're gonna do that for you. That's actually hilarious. That is super uncanny. I love that. But
Do
yeah.
you need me to repeat this next question?
Yeah, the golden rules. What is the golden rules? What is this? What is this? 60 minutes? What is it? What is anyway, go ahead. What is it? What am I answering?
Like, just based on all of your knowledge and experience, what would you like consider are like the 5 main rules in dog training, like that stick out during like, I guess, your whole training process?
All right. So our 5. All right. Well, number 1, patience.
It doesn't have to be 5.
Okay, whatever. So patience is definitely number 1. You have to have patience. If you don't have patience, you're going to get flustered. Your dog is going to get flustered, and nothing good is going to come from that. So
we lost our patience.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's easy. We're humans. We are emotional. It's easy to get frustrated. You have to train yourself to learn how to be patient and cherish the small wins, because not every day is going to be big wins. You need to be okay with the process, and that not everything is going to happen on day 1. And that is the most important thing, period. All right. So above and beyond everything else, that's number 1. I mean, look, I'm not gonna go through 5, but I'll go through the most important. So patience. Number 2, you have to have the right information. Okay. There's a lot of bad information out there, hence why we're doing this podcast as well. There's also a lot of people that aren't going to tell you the truth, hence why we're doing this podcast as well. There's also things that, I would rather not see you struggle and tell you the truth than lie to you about the realities of dog training and see you struggle. But I guess I'm not like everybody. I'm not saying that everybody's that way, but there is a big chunk of dog training that is that way. And that's why Alyssa and I, struggled for way longer than we had to. And that really just, it's a daily reminder for me to stay rooted in the realities of dog training and making sure that we help our clients avoid all the mistakes that we made. And we made a lot of those mistakes because people weren't being honest with us. And I think that's important to remember. It's my daily reminder. So that's number 2. I'll give a third one.
Okay.
The third one is, you have to train yourself emotionally. So you have to understand a dog with an ingrained habit is going to likely, depending on how ingrained it is and how old your dog is and how long it's been practiced, put it in your mind that this is going to be an emotional process. You are not training a puppy anymore. You're training a dog that's practiced bad behavior over and over and over and over and over, potentially for years. And that's not going to stop until you peel that layer back. How do you stop that? You have to interrupt the behavior. You have to tell your dog, I don't like that. And of course, I'm a big advocate of teaching. Again, that's why we keep dogs for 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time, because there's so much that goes into that and teaching that. But also at the same time, you need to also let your dog know what you don't want. If you just teach what you do want and don't show them the contrast to the other side, then you're dead in the water. And that's, people have come to us going through 3 trainers until somebody has been willing to tell them that aspect. It's just mind-boggling to me, and it really bothers me, because I want to see people win, and people aren't winning not because they're not capable. It's because they're not being told the realities of dog training. And again, that's why I wanted to start this podcast. I'm not going to beat that to a dead horse, but it's a big factor that I don't think a lot of people realize. And I'm going to keep saying it because a big part of my job is helping for people to emotionally prepare that this is going to be tough. Anything challenging, dieting, nutrition, even for me, I'm an Italian. I love food. I love deli sandwiches. In fact, I wrapped. I was better today, I ate a wrap. But even for me, I grew up on food. And even for me to eat healthy, I fall off the rails all the time, even though I know it's not healthy for me. And so it's even hard, like nutrition, dieting, working out. All these things are hard. They test your abilities, and you typically resist along the way. Why should your dog be no different? Why should rehabilitating a behavior issue be any different? The thing is, it's not different. And I think people are being told otherwise. I think I know. I know. You heard me. Podcast episode 9. Okay, great. Next question.
Okay. Is dominance a real thing?
Ooh, this is a good question. This is a good question.
And,
This is gonna be a
like,
good podcast. I'm glad we found our chat, though.
Why in some situations do dogs show dominance? So 2-part question.
Man, like it's like the whole kit and caboodle in these questions this week. I'm fine with it. I mean, it's fine. So I mean, but the questions are layered, is what I'm getting to. We're getting a lot of layered questions.
What does that mean?
Jeez. All right. So the question being dominance and dog training. Okay. So I'm gonna rub my nose because I have an itch. Okay. So
Well,
my
there's-
allergies are killing me lately.
There's also
They're killing me.
some fuzz on there.
Well, thanks for disrupting the audio of our podcast by tapping the microphone.
Sorry.
Technology doesn't. Anyway.
Well, maybe if you got me a pair of those things that you're wearing, I could hear what's going on.
Look, I can only figure out so much at once.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, dominance and dog training. Okay, look. Here's the deal. Okay. The simplest way that I can put this is dogs know and understand how and when they can circumvent certain things. Okay. Now, why am I saying that? Because there's a reason why in most households, dogs listen to one person better than the other. It's because they understand who holds them accountable and they understand who doesn't hold them accountable. So, and that could go either way. It's not gender based. I've seen dogs respond better to the mom than they respond better to the dad. I've seen it be reverse. It's not necessarily about dominance as much as it's about the dog understanding who they can get one over on. And that's why when you have a tough dog and a soft owner, or a soft dog and a kind of a, an owner that's a little bit more loud spoken, things don't mix. Because a soft dog, an anxious dog, a fearful dog needs to be built up, and they need their confidence built up, and they need to be exposed to things, and they need to learn all that. A dog that is overly confident, and if they have a soft owner that's very soft spoken, that's very, anxious about doing anything that's uncomfortable,
Like me.
is going to struggle. So it's less about dominance. It's more about the relationship and the personality traits of the dog and the owner. And you can get into a mismatch there. And that mismatch is what we as trainers try to help bridge that gap. God bless you. So it's less about that. And I already forgot about the 2-part question part of it, but I think that's the best way I can put it. And I think that's sufficient in terms of that. I forgot my vitamin water. I'm pissed because I do so much talking and I get parched. And I got to get a refrigerator in here. Anyway.
Okay. If I train with food, will I always have to use food?
Okay, so the way I put this and the metaphor I use for my clients is my grandma, Nana, Italian, my grandma doesn't go to the casino every time because she wins. She goes because she wins sometimes. So yes, when you're teaching a new behavior, you want to be 100% on food because you're teaching something new. So you want to be heavy on the rewards. But then I recommend once you see your dog start connecting the dots and they're reliable, then start intermittently rewarding them or moving to a variable reinforcement system. Because if you give something every single time and your dog has already learned the thing, now they're playing you versus the other way around. And I don't think that's something that people understand either, where they're doling out rewards for things that the dog already knows. And then the day that you don't give your dog something because you're out of treats or you forgot your treat pouch at home, you are dead in the water. Forget it, because you set that expectation. And I think that's very important to understand as well. These are really good questions. I'm actually glad. I'm glad that these are the questions so far, because it's making for a good. The questions make for good episodes. I don't think we've had a bad episode. I think they've all been good, but the questions really make the episode for sure. Yeah. Why are you laughing?
No, I'm
Sometimes
trying
I get
to smile more,
trying to
so
smile
I don't
more
look like,
because Alyssa has RBF. RBF, and but she's really you're just
I'm working on it.
You're just
Okay.
a kind individual. Great. What
Is
else?
punishing my dog doing any good?
Okay, so we talked about a little bit of this. It's an interruption of a behavior. So I think a lot of people think punishment is a dirty word because they think to like the worst thing possible. Okay. A punisher is just an interruption of a behavior. Now, yelling at your dog, throwing things across the room, blah, 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 whatever, that's where people's minds go when they hear punishment. Punishment is just simply you're interrupting a behavior, okay? Correcting your dog for jumping, that's a punishment, all right? But you can use something like an e-collar, which is not earth-shattering, okay? Your dog just feels the e-collar like, okay, I jumped. And they're going to, if your correction is properly timed, all right, your dog jumps, you correct, they're going to make the connection with that. If your correction is not properly timed, it's going to be confusing for them. So timing in your e-collar correction absolutely is something that has to be worked on, because you want to be as clear to your dog why they're getting corrected. So I think a lot of people, when they hear punishment, they go to the worst thing. But I have videos on our Instagram of us correcting dogs. It's not earth shattering. The dog just stops, they just stop jumping. They're not like, oh my God, this is crazy. No, because we spend all those weeks conditioning the tools, all right, and we give them the contrast of how to communicate with the e-collar, and then we build in the contrast of corrections over time. So it's always best, just to reiterate, when you can teach the communication of the e-collar. Like, for instance, stim comes on, dog comes to you, reward. Stim comes on, dog comes to you, reward. That is a communication. You're communicating with your dog on low levels on the e-collar. That's obedience work. That's what we do in the early stages of the program. We do obedience work with the e-collar. We give it a positive association. Low level, the lowest level the dog could feel typically, all right? You introduce the stimulation, you use a leash, use leash to give it direction. E-collars don't have direction unless you're going to give it leash pressure. So you're going to give your dog guidance when they feel the stim for the first time. You do that over and over again. And if you're rewarding through that process, your dog is going to view the e-collar as a communication. All right. Over time, once you've done that for all your dog's commands, then when you start building in the contrast of corrections, it's not earth-shattering because you built your dog's confidence on the training tool. I mean, that's why corrections aren't earth-shattering. And that's why, punishment, again, it's just you're conditioning a tool that your dog understands, and you're using it as communication. Just like if we communicate as humans, sometimes we talk to people, sometimes we talk a little bit louder, sometimes we talk a little bit louder. There's no difference with an e-collar. So it's not this like crazy thing that people's minds go to. And by the way, I put the e-collar on my client's arms when the dog goes home, and everybody's expecting like this major thing, and they're like, I don't even feel it. I'm like, well, that's the point. Right? It's just enough for your dog to want to stop certain behaviors when they're not listening to a command or they're jumping or something like that. Yeah. So,
Great.
Yeah, right. And when we've had to correct Ash and Layla, it's not, I mean, you've corrected them for things.
Yeah.
It's not what people make it out to be. I think people make it out to be this big thing. All right.
They just stop.
They just stop and they go and do something else. It's not like this major thing. So yeah, no, I mean, corrections in dog training are important because it's like, there are take our society. There aren't rules for different people. We all have to abide by the same rules for the most part. Okay. I know people are going to chime in and be like, well, what about the billionaires of the world? All right. For the most part, we all got to follow the same rules. Okay. No government or town is saying, well, they're good people. So, no, the rules are constant. And that's why for dogs, it should be the same way, because our society functions because of that way. Why do we do any different with our dogs? Because we have to follow, we're good people. Everybody mostly is for, good intentioned. Can't speak for everybody, but even good intentioned people have to follow a certain set of rules because it keeps everybody on a straight and narrow. Okay. We also have tons of freedom too as humans, and dogs are no different. Just because you have corrections in your dog training doesn't mean that they don't have tons of freedom still. You're just saying for them what you don't want, and I think that's probably the best way I can put that, so.
Okay.
What do we got? What's next?
How do you suggest mentally stimulating my dog?
Oh, geez. I feel like we get this question all the time. I feel like I've answered this 6 times, but I'll answer it again. So for,
really?
I don't know, maybe, but mental stimulation. So, I'm a big fan of snuffle mats. In fact, I used to make snuffle mats during COVID. So like 10 o'clock at night, I'd be making snuffle mats, cutting the felt. I would go on Amazon. I get all the materials. I was going to start an Etsy shop at one point. A snuffle mat, if you don't know what a snuffle mat is basically pieces of felt. They're tied together very closely, and you can hide all sorts of treats and stuff. It's kind of like a puzzle. And you can make a huge one. You can make a small one. You can make one like the size of a small rug, and your dog could be sitting there for an hour, sniffing their way through it. So I think I love those because especially on a rainy day or a day that's not nice out, those are good to bring out. So I love those. I don't have time to start an Etsy shop. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I heard that.
No, I was just going to say, I think we need another reminder about how to rate things in the chat.
All right, so for those of you that are still tuned in, how do things look? Give us a little feedback. Is everything running smoothly? You can hear us okay?
No, how do they write something in the chat?
No, I understand that.
Oh.
But I'm just also asking for those that know how to post in the chat. Everything good? All right, video quality, audio. I mean, this feedback is really important for us as we continue to do episodes and stuff. So I always want to hear from those that are watching. But yes, to post in the chat. Oh, great. Thanks, Jen. Jen has joined every podcast since our very beginning. All right. And I mean,
hearts, lots of hearts.
Lots of hearts. Look, oh, that's cool. I've never seen that before. I tried. So what we're doing, guys, just so everybody knows, we're streaming a different way today so that I can actually post the YouTube live stream link earlier in the day. Prior, I would get the link like right when we got live, and people were getting confused how to follow or how to access the stream. So today I figured out how to get the link earlier, but it means that we had to go through a different process for setting up the stream. So I'm just making sure that because we changed all this stuff last minute, I want to make sure that everything's rocking and rolling. And thank you so much, Jen. Thank you so much for supporting us. Jen was one of our first clients. Awesome. Thank you, Powderfinger. We're gonna find out. I can't wait for the email or text message later once I figure out who exactly you are. Excellent sound. Awesome. Thank you to Jen. Thank you to Powderfinger. Thank you to all of you that are supporting us. This is why we do this. And as I was saying, Jen was one of our very first clients. I say this all the time, but they're like family. We have to set up another dinner at some point, Jen and Jeff, which we'll connect offline. We don't need to do that live on the podcast. But thanks, Jen. Thanks, Powderfinger.
You still have not given instructions on how to put something in the chat.
Oh, instructions. Okay, how do you post in the chat? People are posting.
But other people would like to know.
Get it. Okay. I will go into how to post. All right. So if you are, if you're logged in to your Gmail account, because Google owns YouTube, so you have to log into your Gmail account if you have a Gmail, it will allow you to post in the chat. So if you've accessed our live stream and you're not logged in technically, log in, hit sign in the top right corner or wherever it is, access using your Gmail. It's going to be the same Gmail you use for your email. And once you're logged in with your Gmail, it will allow you to post questions in the live chat. But you have to be logged in. Okay. How did I do it? All right. I did okay on that.
Yes.
Alyssa's here to keep me on track. She's here to keep me on track. So, and she does a very good job at it.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like the person figured it out. So
who is this person?
So we have a side note recommendation. For episode number 10 to celebrate our 10th episode that we should have a Layla guest appearance.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Yeah, we can do that. So we'll have Layla, who started our struggles, or who we struggle with. The reason why Hope Cables Canine exists. Layla, for those of you that don't know, had severe reactivity to other dogs and people at 6 months of age. That's why we're sitting here right now. A lot happened in between that. I ended up shadowing the trainer that helped Layla, and I traveled all over Fairfield County. I posted a whole reel on our Instagram of this yesterday. So we had a whole journey to get to where we are today. But Layla is the reason for us being here. And we'll bring her into the room in our next podcast. And for those of you that have not met her, I'll have her hop on my lap or something. Okay.
She's good at that. Okay.
All right. Cool. What else we got? We got what?
That's it.
Really? Whoa! Yeah. Wow. We're 49 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's one of our longer podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for those of you that are tuned in. Any questions, anything that we missed, anything that you're curious about? We are actually, for everybody, next week we're going to skip a week, which is the first time we're skipping a week. We want to make sure episode 10 is it's like a tent pole.
10 stars.
Yeah. It's like a tent pole for us. So we're taking a week just to kind of plan things out. So next week we won't have a podcast, but we will be coming the following week. the weather's starting to get nicer. I'm loving it. Training outside is beautiful now. Training is
Yes.
so difficult when it's brittle out, although we've been getting warm winters, so it's actually been fine. But I much prefer training in the summer, although you will see me out in the freezing cold. And if it's really that cold, we go into stores and stuff like that. So we always make it work. But I'm so, so glad that the weather's getting nicer. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this in the cold weather. We may have a second location in Florida at some point, which is something that we're exploring. So we'll see. All right. Well, before we shut things down, I want to give just about 20, 30 seconds for anybody to ask any last questions. Thank you for all of you for your engagement in the podcast. And tuning in. Yeah. And so if we don't get anything in the next, again, 20, 30 seconds, we're going to bid farewell. And we will see you not next week, but we will see you the week after. And that will be our 10th episode. As a reminder for everybody, you can stream the audio of our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We posted the links today on our Instagram. If you're not following us on Instagram, at Hope Gables K9, okay, is our Instagram handle. That's where you can ask questions leading up to the podcast, even before it's live. That's also where you can vote on the lead-in topic. All right, so all of that can be voted on. And that's how you help drive the podcast. And we build that around what you want to hear about. So just some reminders there. Thank you for tuning in. You Heard Me Podcast, episode 9. The next one will be number 10, and I'm super excited. Have a great night. Thank you so much for all of your support. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Take care.